One. And we are recording with the two kings of misinformation themselves, the respectable, the badasses, the guys that never bend the knee, Dr. Pierre, Kory, Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Robert Malone, best known for inventing the mRNA vaccine technology and your 9 patents, which everyone refuses to recognize, and Dr. Pierre Kory with the FLCCC, and Dr. Merrick fearlessly using ivermectin to keep, as Dr. McCullough would say, 85% of deaths, or 85% of deaths out of the hospital, and as Dr. Freed would say, 99%. But with that, gentlemen, there's really two ways to go into this. And Dr. Malone and I did really the first episode 495. And it's the quote unquote smaller elephant in the room. And it's the VAERS deaths. But as things move forward, you're starting to pull off more of the sheet. You're starting to uncover more of the dinosaur in the dirt. And you're seeing just how many more deaths are involved with the suppression of early treatment. And now, and there is a purpose aside from just getting you guys on here, because all of my most viewed episodes are with Dr. Malone. So I do have a bias and I do have conflicts of interest. But one thing I really was thinking about, because Dr. Kory, I listened to your interview with Joe Rogan last night and this morning, again, back to back. To me, I think the most beneficial thing I could do, aside from just beating a dead horse, is, are there predictions or are there definitive statements that either of you could make? Because the one thing you can look back on is you can say, we've known masks weren't working. And then they say they don't work. We know mandates weren't the way to go. And then they say, well, maybe they weren't the way to go. And they gaslight everyone into completely just brushing aside everything they've done. So I feel like the only way to actually make a difference would be for maybe you guys to make predictions or statements now, Tuesday, February 15th, 2022 at 2:07 p.m. Eastern time, so that in a day, a week, a month, or a year, when they finally admit to what you guys will now be predicting, this can be pulled up at that future time and say, these physicians were right then. What are they right about now? Whatever now is, because I can't shut my mouth. Dr. Kory or Dr. Malone, one of you guys take it away.
Yeah.
Here, well, please go first.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a couple of thoughts. So, Tommy, you're obviously a smart guy. I've listened to a couple of your episodes. I listened to you with Paul. I mean, implicit in your question is that there's going to come a time where there's an open admission to that. And then that second question would follow, wow, these guys had it right for a long time. What else could they have gotten right, or what else are they getting right now? I don't want to sound so cynical or negative, but, what I've seen a lot of with these policies that are clearly failed, clearly scientifically either illogical or just not scientifically based, is I'm still seeing a lot of doubling down. I mean, I don't see a walk back of those positions. I don't see an admission. You see a little bit. So like, I saw this ridiculous Dr. Leanne Wen, who's just been spouting all sorts of nonsense on any given day. But it was really interesting, her messaging recently, which is that she put on this like happy face that these mask mandates were kind of being walked back. But implicit in her explanation was that this is all part of the plan. We always were waiting for cases to die down and for this to become less emergency. So now we're walking, and as if this was normal and totally rational and in line with all their previous policies. And so when I hear that, like, I think that's a taste of that walk back, which is, they kind of knew they were going to do this all along, and they knew that the vaccines, they might even admit, we knew the vaccines were only going to temporize things until things got better and Omicron. Like, they can write whatever narrative they can. I'm so cynical at this point. Like, I just don't see like an open and honest admission, at least on the public face, from institutions and agencies and academia, that my small band of brothers and sisters here, what we've been spouting or, advocating for so long, boy, we should have listened to them. I don't think the phrase comes out like that, but at the same time, and I don't want to give too long an answer, I think there is going to be some sort of reckoning. I mean, if they don't say it, I think there's going to be a critical mass of people who are going to recognize it, and they're going to say, wow, we were led to not listen to these guys, to think of them as fringe and radical, and all the attacks that Robert has endured and myself has endured. My hopes is that the next time something critical comes and you have these big institutions putting out stuff, that they're going to listen to dissidents and they're going to listen to a broader, range of voices. And whether it's us, if it's another viral pandemic, I think we'll have something to say. If it's some other financial crash or, then that's out of my wheelhouse. I'll just stand down and listen. Then talk to Chris Martinson of Peak Prosperity. But I don't know. That's just some of my thoughts. I see doubling down, and I'll just tell you why, Tommy. I mean, I wrote about it in my Substack last night, but like yesterday, my wife told me, she's a physician, she's employed by a major university. She told me that she has to get boosted with this Wuhan strain pseudo vaccine for Omicron by May, or she's done. So when I say they're doubling down, I mean, they are so far off the reservation where science is telling us we should be, and they're going further. Now, I don't know if that's happening everywhere, because agreed, right? Europe, lots of countries in Europe rolling back mandates. Canada's doing stuff. I think I saw a little headline today, DC mayors talking about rolling back stuff. So it's happening in pockets, but there's still, I don't know, strongholds of resistance, right, Robert?
Yeah, is that a pass off, Pierre?
Yeah, that's a pass off. When I say your name, that's like when I'm passing off. And by the way, I like humor, because everything becomes doom and gloom. So I want to talk about my patent, Tommy. I have one patent. I don't have 9 like really super fancy patents like Robert does. But you want to know what my patent is?
What's your patent?
I'll tell it a brief story. 2-minute drill. I was running an ICU when I was like a second year attending, and there was a massive outbreak of Clostridium difficile in our ICU. And everybody had the gown and glove for everybody. It was so laborious. It was a hot summer day. And I was gowning and gloving, and all like the ancillary staff, like respiratory therapists and nurses, were all going in and out of the rooms without putting on gowns. Like they touched the pump, they touched the vent. And I was just like, how come I'm the only one putting on a gown? So then I came with the brilliant idea of a gown dispenser. Motion triggered, it would sit over the doorway of the room, and like as you approach, the gown would drop down. It would have like an open entry in the back. You could put your hands in, you just go in, everyone would gown. And I just want to finish the story by saying, I enlisted my best friend, my brother, $40,000. 2 years later, 3 sets of engineers, a patent. We decided that we were going to keep our day jobs, and we let it go. So Robert, that's my patent story, sir. A gown dispenser. And by the way, as I went into it, I was realizing, almost like when you embark on a coronavirus vaccine, I was like, I want to build a gown dispenser, and I still can't get a paper towel out of an airport bathroom when I finish washing my hands. So like, I kind of felt like it might not be the right area of technology.
I'll insert my own patent. I'm the only podcaster, as well as I'm aware, and on the planet, who has interviewed both Dr. Malone and a man who has walked on the moon. And where has that got me? In a 700 square foot apartment in a shit town in Maryland. So, same thing. I'm not sure if there's any winning in there, but Dr. Malone, we will stop talking.
You're right. So those 9 patents, by the way, those aren't our only ones.
He had to dig it in. So now my gown dispenser even is more humble.
Let me finish the thread, though.
I'll kick it off. It'll just be you and me.
One Susan B. Anthony dollar. There it is. I guarantee I've spent more money on lawyers than I've ever received in patent revenue, and believe that.
Touche.
Somebody made billions.
Yeah, but Jill likes to say somebody made billions. It just wasn't me.
All right.
It just wasn't you guys.
So the crystal ball question. I thought you were going to give us the big why question, which is the worst of the lot.
But
the crystal ball question, having been through multiple pandemics, the cynics version of how will you know when it's over is when they start giving each other awards and patting each other on the back.
Oh God.
And I don't just say that lightly. I've seen it again and again and again. So good to know. So there's one prediction, is we will know that it's over when they start giving each other medals and awards. I'm talking about the gubbies. I just had an hour and a half conversation with an interesting gentleman, Neil Oliver, from the UK, from Great Britain News, who called me with some questions. I don't want to go too deep into that because it was a personal conversation. But he did share with me that the UK is now normalizing testing for autoimmune deficiency syndrome, that the population should get used to having to be tested for that. That implies a growing—
Wait, Robert, acquired immunodeficiency or autoimmune?
Acquired, so AIDS.
Okay, yeah, you said autoimmunity, so I just want to make sure because there is a lot of autoimmunity going on, but I assume that's what you meant.
Yeah, so acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. We do have these data from DOD, which are aligned with the data from Ryan Cole, suggesting that the cancer risk signal is real. So that and then we have the actuarial insurance industry data from multiple sources now in their fourth quarter reports from the prior year, demonstrating a sharp rise in 2021 in all-cause mortality as well as disability. So we would call those morbidity. The challenge in interpreting those data is the CDC is now trying to normalize the idea that the virus itself has an up to 12-month lag time in mortality associated with a virus infection. There have been many people warning throughout the course of this that we may see a major wave in mortality and disability through a combination of the effects of the virus and the effects of the vaccine. And many of those people have been focusing on speculation that this is going to be vaccine related. We are seeing data that are consistent with that. So in terms of the crystal ball, I think we should be anticipating that there may be a wave of mortality and disability that has not yet peaked. That is not directly associated with the virus infection, and may have a significant component of vaccine-related adverse events. I think that we have—
Is that going to interfere with the awards, Robert?
No, they will do everything they can to normalize it. That we're seeing that. Being facetious, it's going to be global warming. I don't
get
know
it.
what.
I get it.
There will be an ongoing attempt to deny. I do believe, venturing into the related political sphere, that we are going to see a turn in the party's control of House and Senate. We've already seen— people aren't generally aware of this, but in terms of voting in the Senate right now, it's 49-50 in favor of the Republicans, because one of the Democrats that was highly vaccinated, and rumor has it, he received his third jab with some sort of temporal association to stroke that has been significantly severe to result in his more prolonged hospitalization. And the speculation is that that clinical course may be more prolonged and hopefully not terminal. So that's taken— currently we have the senator from New Mexico is no longer able to vote, but still holds the position.
He's 49.
He's 49 years old, Jill tells me. So there's— as we move through this, in the short term, there is significant movement to defund the mandates on the Senate side, and that vote may come up shortly. And then I hear intelligence that that was Freudian. The Biden administration is preparing a speech to the effect of rationalizing dropping the mandates globally, and that might include the Department of Defense. Currently, we have something like 10% of military warfighters in the United States are not fully vaccinated. And so they're at risk in the very short term of being terminated with this kind of hybrid, not quite dishonorable discharge thing that they're doing. And but loss of pension and other benefits. So a loss of 10% of the warfighters would significantly compromise readiness. And so I think there are multiple vectors pushing to stop the mandates.
You think it's because the truckers are coming, Robert?
No, they are afraid of the truckers though. And as you know, Pierre, they've put in place this Department of Homeland Security statement that labels anyone purveying what they determine to be mis or disinformation, which would cause concern about the government and its policies. So it's explicitly linked to a political endpoint, are basically now being labeled domestic terrorists or at risk of being so labeled with the attendant events. We have now Trudeau. So one of the things in terms of looking forward, we now have a precedent with Trudeau and with the GoFundMe campaign of collusion between banks and Silicon Valley to withhold funds or, in the case of Trudeau, access people's bank accounts and block their access to funds. So this is more fuel on a fire, Tommy. I'm sorry to say, it's not me, many analysts that I'm hearing from, including even people at the highest levels in the Senate, are anticipating some sort of major financial event, and that could have an event horizon in the next 2 months, maybe as soon as the end of this month. So another prediction that relates to all this is that there may be a major financial event. In terms of the virus getting back on track to our core competency, I think that there is a growing awareness in a variety of forums, including particularly the stock market. So that Pfizer and Moderna have not been transparent about the data and the risks, and that is creating significant risk of financial downside in those stocks. And there seems to be a movement to unload by long-term investors. And this includes the CEO of Moderna, who's been dumping his stock for quite a while now. And you've seen Moderna take a significant haircut. The prediction is that both Moderna and Pfizer will take a significant haircut, and there are analysts, senior, highly seasoned analysts, suggesting that Pfizer is at significant risk also financially, and Pfizer's internal SEC filings have recently been modified to acknowledge some of these risks, which they have to do if they're not going to get cleaned by the SEC.
I mean, I just got some today. Moderna's down, lost 140 billion as of 11 a.m.
Yeah, so people are starting to run for the exits, and the shorts are in on this for both these stocks. There is in Canada quite a bit of speculation that Justin Trudeau and his family's foundation holds 40% of Acuitas. Acuitas is the manufacturer of the cationic lipids that are used by Pfizer and the formulation technology. It's privately held. So there appears that there may be a major financial conflict of interest on the part of Mr. Trudeau.
You got to be kidding me. How long have you known this, Robert?
I have known that there was speculation that this might be the case. Remember, I know Peter Cullis, the academic at the University of British Columbia that gave rise to Acuitas, and I've spoken to him over time, including over the last couple of years, a couple of times. I've known him professionally for decades. He would not take my calls last night when I was seeking to verify this information about ownership. So there's financial COI issues that are going to come to fore. There are failure to disclose risks issues that are going to come to fore. Remember, we still have the bundle of documents waiting to drop sometime this summer from Pfizer under court order, and the court seems to be not finding the argument that Pfizer should be the one doing the redaction on behalf of the FDA to be very compelling. But that has not yet been ruled on. So I predict that there are significant safety risk data within that package, and evidence of failure to perform normal, or to comport, let's say, with normal policies and procedures for the non-clinical and clinical testing of these vaccines. In that case, the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine that will drop, in addition to more granular safety data than the CDC has seen fit to disclose. Let's see, other predictions. In addition to the, we mentioned the oncology risks in the DoD database. The data set is quite substantial, and its analysis is still on progress. There will be a filing this Friday in court that will include a partial analysis of these additional data, and then the data analysis is ongoing. But it does appear, I'm told, that the DoD, the primary DoD data from the DMSS and DMED systems that appear to have been subsequently edited after the whistleblower disclosed them, it does appear that the general profile and relative incidence of many of these adverse events that are being reported are consistent with VAERS. What's a little fascinating about the DoD data set is that it was fully available to the NIH and to the CDC and presumably the FDA. And so if that story crystallizes the way it appears that it might, then there's going to have to be accountability throughout HHS for why these signals weren't detected. The signals also include reproductive risks. We already know that the CDC is now acknowledging, although trying to minimize, the dysmenorrhea, the alteration in menses that have been reported by women all over the world repeatedly, as well as by the Orthodox Jewish rabbi community. In terms of basic biology, menstruation is driven by the ovary. And so these alterations in menstrual cycle are consistent with the speculated risk of the positively charged synthetic lipids going to ovarian tissue. So these things are all kind of converging on the reproductive risk being a real event. and that would potentially have implications all the way down to the children. I predict that there's a low probability that we're going to see the regulatory package for the 5 and under allowed. The statements are that after 2 doses, they're not seeing something that they're looking for. And so they're going to delay decision until they have the data in on the 3rd dose for the pediatric, basically infant cohort. And I predict that what is behind this is not necessarily a safety signal, because they've dropped the dose quite a bit, but an efficacy signal, so that as we know, these vaccines are poorly matched for Omicron. I predict that the impetus for an Omicron specific vaccine is going to drop. We may or may not see that roll out experimentally. I doubt that we're going to see that being authorized. So the risks, back to that with the DoD data. So we had the reproductive risks. We have the risks associated with oncology, cancer, that seem to be manifesting. We have the expected or anticipated cardiovascular risks. I think that we're going to see more autoimmune and inflammatory disorder disease. I think that we're going to see a significant level of neuropathy come to fore and be realized. I think that there is a reasonable chance that we're going to see some form of a immune deficiency that might be primarily T cell manifest associated with these vaccines. And it may be that it is dose dependent. In other words, people with 3 jabs have it worse than 2 than 1. I think that we are, I can't see if the House and the Senate turn, that we aren't going to see a major push to restructure the Department of Health and Human Services in a substantial way.
That's what I want to talk about, Robert. That I think is quite possible. At least I'm very hopeful that there's going to be a real critical look. If the parties change power, again, it's going to still be very partisan, right? There's going to be a lot of defensiveness and rationalization, and difficult time. We made the decisions we did, but that underlying rot that is not unique to COVID and has been going on for decades, that has surfaced so that more people can see it than ever before.
Bingo.
That now has to be addressed, right? That's the elephant in the room that used to be hidden. Maybe it wasn't an elephant. Maybe it was a mouse before. Now it's an elephant.
Bingo. But it's not new.
I had a call today with a former FDA senior staff that is more conservatively aligned, that was an advisor to the director, and he was quite clear about what he's observing. Caliph has been confirmed. Fascinating. So Jill just showed me that Caliph has now been confirmed for FDA, which means that Janet Woodcock is out. What this gentleman told me was that the director of CDER actually has more power than the overall director of FDA, because they control the authorization of the new drug applications. And he spoke at length about the conflicts of interest that are driving what is really a self-censorship on the part of FDA reviewer staff, because they know that if their name is affixed to a dossier that raises significant concerns about a drug, their probability of getting a nice juicy, high six-figure salary job after they depart the FDA will vanish.
That's how the wheels go round, Robert.
Yep. So this guy he writes for Forbes right now, and I think we're going to see more information coming out from him to document the ways in which this corruption has settled in, and hopefully get towards some remediation. But then I think the big story of the next 3 years, I hope, is going to be in Pierre's wheelhouse, which is the compromise of our healthcare system and our healthcare insurance industry. And what the heck are we going to do about that?
Dr. Kory?
I thought you were going to say, when you said my wheelhouse, I thought you were going to say the takeover and corruption mediated by the levers of media, social media. Because nothing that has happened in the last 2 years wouldn't have been done without the total control of those levers
Fair enough.
to that objective. And so actually, it's interesting, Robert, you gave a long answer and you touched on a lot of developments and where they're all in motion right now. All of those things are happening and how far they might go. But you didn't mention media. Is there going to be an accounting? Is there going to be like you even mentioned the possibility that parties change power, and there could be an effort at restructuring and looking at how to restructure, for instance, HHS.
Okay.
Like I'm curious, and I have my own thoughts. I don't know that it'll happen, but because here's what I would say about media. And again, I'm not a media expert. I haven't followed, but my sense is that those people who are awakening are becoming, just like I said, they're now awake of the rot in the pharmaceutical industry. They're now understanding that they've been lied to repeatedly throughout wide swaths of media and social media and censored. And so those institutions in society, I think, are also going to be taken to task. How will they self-reform? They do follow the money, right? So if the eyeballs and the viewers go elsewhere, there may be some impetus for self-reform and honesty and objectivity, but I don't know.
So the way I hear the story, so we've got kind of two interlaced compartments that, of course, are also horizontally integrated with pharma.
Right.
That's
exactly.
tech. And what I'm hearing is that there is a quid pro quo relationship between big tech and government, the current administration, wherein the Democrats are holding back on legislation and regulatory action to break up the big tech conglomerates. And the quid pro quo is the big tech conglomerates are doing the bidding of the current administration by controlling information and messaging.
So I don't have the sources you do, Robert, but I had a conversation with a longtime veteran White House official, and he basically said the same thing, that it's essentially, they're basically part of the White House, not even a question, and the government.
Yeah. So that would imply that there will be an effort to break these up, but the pushback, I think personally, my little band of warriors is, and we're now connecting with many others internationally. Right. The topic area of the World Economic Forum and their role in all of this is coming to fore. And so that's the counterweight, is the WEF, through its young leaders programs, and there's other programs, has trained thousands and thousands of basically leaders or influencers that have been then embedded into all the Western democracies up to the cabinet level, and in some case executive level. and Justin Trudeau being a notable example, Macron being another one, Boris Johnson being another one. Apparently, Putin is a graduate of the World Economic Forum process, and so these people seem to be. It seems to have been that the World Economic Forum trainees that are now in positions of power are the ones that have been the most aggressive with promotion of these kind of authoritarian state positions in forcing and in mandating the vaccines. And those folks are not going to give up easy. They seem to mostly double down.
Yep.
So that's the counterpoint to the optimist version. Pierre's giving the optimist version of what's going to happen with media and tech, and I'm giving the contrapositive. That's fancy statistical medical talk, meaning the opposite, which is that the World Economic Forum crew is not going to go down easy, and the data, to my eye, are getting stronger and stronger. That is the organization that kind of is the, forgive the Lord of the Rings metaphor, holds the one ring that rules them all.
Well, Robert, let me link my optimism with your, and I first learned this from you and talking with you, this common link of these leadership programs coming out of the WEF, and how you look at all these world leaders and they all have this common genesis, right? And so, I mean, it's absolutely terrifying. But again, I'm just going to go back to that stuff I would have never known. Most of us would never know that. No one was made that, people like you have a voice. All of us who are calling foul and looking to see where all this depravity, where all this corruption is coming from, because it's not just one source. It does have a central source. Mm-hmm. And and I wouldn't say even the U.S. population, a global population, because like you mentioned, we have little bands just like us in every single country. We've reached out. Some of them have personal relationships. We're all speaking out. And so I do think there's going to be a collective mass of people who are now going to look at this stuff and make these links and understand more deeply how things work, how power is corrupted and consolidated and acted on. And so again, I'm going to my pie-eyed optimism with that knowledge, right, comes power, but maybe we'd be a little bit more wary of the next globalist who comes out of WEF running for president of a major country. Maybe.
So that's our goal with my little band of pirates, is to out them.
Yes, exactly.
To make a compendium listing the names and naming where they're currently placed, because it's not just in government. They're all through tech and the banking sector and the media, just like for those of you who, this is not a conspiracy theory, just like the Trusted News Initiative is not a conspiracy theory. Look up Operation Mockingbird in the CIA. The government intelligence community places individuals throughout the media to influence opinions and behavior in ways that are aligned with the government's interests. That's just a fact. What the question in my mind is, or let me put it this way: when I write about these things on social media, which I love as a forum for getting feedback from people, what comes back to me is a lot of skepticism about whether the electoral process has been compromised already to such an extent that voting is not going to be a remedy.
Yeah,
I needed to jump in to insert what I was going to say. I'm glad you talked about Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird will be complete when everything the U.S. public believes is false. CIA Director William H. Casey. The point of me, yeah, 50s. The point of me bringing up all of this, and this is to actually disagree with what you said, Dr. Kory. If it's a financial thing, it's outside of your wheelhouse, or as Dr. Malone said, back to what we're talking about in our fields of expertise. I would say is incorrect. You need to zoom out to not the 30,000 foot view, but to the 100,000 foot view.
Yeah.
What is it? It's something going on. It's experts talking out, and it's entrenched power structures shutting it down. If Joe Rogan's podcast existed in 2000, he would be called a misinformation spreader for talking about how Saddam does not have WMDs. If Joe
Right.
Rogan's podcast existed in 2008, he'd be called a misinformation spreader for talking about the coming financial collapse. What you have to do is make predictions. And so no one will listen to these predictions. But when X amount of time passes and people see that they are accurate, the next thing coming, maybe it's not Dr. Malone and Dr. Kory, maybe it's financial gurus, or maybe it's shipping gurus or whatever. People are going to go, do you remember the last time everyone started getting censored and then it came out in like 2028 that there was collusion between the FDA and like 6 million people died because of that? That is why I think it's important for you two to make predictions now, because it transcends COVID. It transcends financial collapses. It transcends the next war. You have to put your foot down now. And you see all those stories of veterans of Vietnam who saw the Iraq war happening and they said, I know exactly what this is. I know exactly what you don't listen to them. But now we have two. Now we have two examples of people going, I saw Vietnam, I saw Iraq, and now they're going, don't do Ukraine.
Right.
Don't do Taiwan. So to me, that is the importance, is because it doesn't matter if it's COVID and it's you guys, it's everything. It's the only way. You have to show by example that these things are corrupted, that there is total capture of these things. Sorry for that little side rant, but
No, I
that's
think
the
your
important
points are well made. Well made.
Dr. Kory, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My thoughts are really humble. You know, when I listen to Robert, I mean, Robert has, you know, this immense amount of connections. I mean, he's been, you know, a world figure in pandemic responses in high levels of government and health, you know, health agencies and whatnot, with a much more varied career than mine. You know, I was thinking, like, I'm not in the prediction business. And up until 2 years ago, I was buried in an ICU. My sole focus was like on how to resuscitate the dying patient and teach that skill to my trainees. Like I was solely an educator. That's all I did. I tried to figure out how to do that better and pass that knowledge on. And now that I've been sort of excommunicated and launched into this, you know, what I call this global war on repurposed drugs, I'm getting a crash course in life and I'm figuring out how things work. I get to hang out with guys like Robert, and, you know, I've learned a lot from him as well as a number of other colleagues. And, you know, piecing all these parts together and seeing how they work. I mean, it's been fascinating, unsettling, terrifying. And, you know, and also where I'm learning most is looking backwards. Like, you know, the stuff I know now, when I look backwards, I'm like, oh, that explains that and that and that and the other thing, you know? And so, yes, maybe that is a skill I can develop as going forward. I mean, I liked Robert's answer to the opening of this podcast where he touched on like a whole bunch of these things that are happening and where we think they're going to go. Again, I'm not in the prediction business, but and again, I think I'm too optimistic, right, Robert? Robert's like, all of my answers like, well, now that we know this, we'll fix this, and it'll be better. I'm and Robert's smiling at me. I can see you, Robert.
I'm with you, Dr. Kory. I'm an optimist, and then I'll have on former Delta Force guys, and they'll be like, you need to stack ammo, stack water, and sight in your guns. And I'm like, but what if we all start seeing the goodness in one another and people start loving more? And they're like,
that's me.
In the chest, one in the eyes, Tom, know how to boil water. And I'm like, maybe love conquers. And they're like, you're going to be the first casualty. But
that's pretty funny, Tommy. I like that. That's really good. You're going to be the first casualty. I'm going to be the first.
You're going to come try to resuscitate me, and you're going to get a bullet in the head. Exactly. Yeah, Dr. Malone's going to be a NORAD. He's a thinker. Dr. Malone, your thoughts?
Well, on that point, as I said on Tucker the other day, I used to be in the if they can't see you, they can't shoot you camp. But the force of the situation kind of pushed me out of my foxhole.
Yeah.
I do think that, so this is the teaching of Matthias Desmet. We must continue to be the objectors and to raise our concerns and to speak our truth, or else the whole society goes even deeper into the crazy land. And we have to do it peacefully, quietly, you know, not aggressively. I mean quietly in the sense of let's not get hyperbolic and overly animated. But we have to do it because otherwise, or we can go home and just retreat to our bunkers.
Not an
and
option, Robert. You know that. You've said that.
Stockpile rice and beans. But that's not how I'm wired. And clearly that's not how Pierre's wired. Pierre, he spoke about watching my trajectory over the last 2 years, but I've watched Pierre become a very forceful speaker. His comments on the Lincoln Memorial about the drug industry are for the ages. And I think that he has a very important voice here to speak his truth. Somehow this is a resolvable problem. The question is, do we have the spine? Do we have the willingness to commit to solving it? I'm going to be on the Hill soon. I'm not supposed to talk about it too much. And one of the things I've been cautioned about is that the majority of the members are, by the Hill, I'm referring to the Capitol, and the majority of the members are still well behind us in terms of their awareness of what's happened. And I'm counseled to be very gentle in trying to bring them forward to an awareness of the reality of the situation, because they're really not ready to hear it. And I think that's probably true for a lot of the population.
Robert, that point you just made is so interesting because, when that's a really important audience. And when they're behind and we're so far, and I don't want to say we're advanced or so far ahead, but I've been so immersed and I've had this fascinating and rich network of colleagues who, data analysts and experts who've been skeptical and question, have their own areas of expertise, many of them unconflicted, who know certain truths. And most of the population, including a lot of the Capitol, right, is behind. They're still steeped in a lot of false narrative. And the thing is, you can't go from here all the way to here in like one speech, right? You almost got to like spoon feed them a little bit to bring them along. Otherwise, you're going to appear like incredible and completely out there.
Yeah. So it's going to be baby steps.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a little painful. And we're going to get attacked for being controlled opposition and for not speaking sufficiently forcefully. We're going to get attacked from both sides.
Right.
We already are. And that's the fate that we've signed up for here, right? Exactly. If we're to succeed, we don't have we don't have a tank corps that we can just come in and blast away. We're going to have to be more like special ops and have strategic strikes and take guerrilla tactics. But I do think so that I'm worried, sincerely worried about the health consequences of specifically of these genetic vaccines. Now that we know that the RNA persists for at least 60 days and maybe beyond, because they didn't sample longer than that, that is completely unnatural. And that the levels that something like 95 to 98% of the people vaccinated with the genetic vaccines of either type, the RNA vaccines, can have high levels of detectable spike protein in their blood. And in many of those, they persist for at least 60 days. That's not natural. And that's in contrast to a little under 8% of people with natural infection have spike protein that's detectable by the same assay in their blood. So we do have this growing body of data that's consistent with the adverse events. And I fear that the worst case scenarios that we all chalked up to conspiracy theories about, the phrase is mass casualty event. That seems a little hyperbolic, but significant loss of life and disability wave, including within our warfighter population, which if there's any one population that overall we can all agree that we don't want to be physically compromised, that would be it. And it's of course a population that is particularly close to Tommy and his audience. Over.
Robert, you know what a random weird thought just came to me? That's a really scary thought. People going for life insurance. What's the chances that the question, have you been vaccinated, shows up on that?
Oh, it's coming.
And not in a good way, not because they want to make sure that your health is protected. They want to know what is your risk factor for everything that you just talked about. And that will be an adverse score on your life insurance policy.
I can't see how it doesn't happen. They don't have any choice because of these actuarial table calculations. That industry is going to take a major hit. We already know that.
And I'm going to take a hit. You know what the price of life insurance is going to be?
Out of your range.
It won't matter, Pierre, because you and I are
Probably
the first you and I are the first casualties. It won't matter. We're done.
There's that.
The kind of the closing thought, because I know I gotta let you guys run, is I don't know if you saw from February 9th, so 6 days ago, Moderna tweeted, "What if mRNA could treat life-threatening cardiovascular diseases such as heart failure? We are collaborating with AstraZeneca on an mRNA therapeutic, AZD8601, that encodes for VEGF proteins injected directly into the heart." Kind of like the Oxycontin epidemic, and then introducing Suboxone. They are now talking about mRNA vaccines to cure
Tommy, what was my
myocarditis.
first answer? My first answer was the words. It was centered around the words doubling down.
Yeah.
Okay. That is simply an example of doubling down. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah. And with that, Dr. Pierre Kory, Dr. Robert Malone, thank you so much. And hold on, don't go anywhere.